Hi there. It's 5:30 on Tuesdays, and I'm here to kind of salute and toast you with a happy half hour of discussion. I think we've kind of evolved into a public affairs show, which is wonderful. It's actually where we want to be as a museum. My name is Susy Schultz, and I am the executive director of the Museum of Broadcast Communication. And here we go. This is one of the many wonderful artifacts that we have of the at the museum. These are original chimes from NBC, and I did co-opt them during the pandemic to bring home to remind me of this wonderful museum in Chicago that we love to promote. We are open on special days, and if you go to our website, you will see what those days are. But we have really pivoted to have a lot of online presence in a number of the things we're doing. And one of the first online exhibits that we've introduced is greatdebates.org. And we're very proud of this. This is not only a site for lifelong learners, it's also a site for high school teachers and middle school teachers, because not only do we have a timeline of 100 years of how the media broadcast industry, whether it is radio, television, or digital, has affected the campaign trail and the presidents. We also have 7 modules of curriculum that will help you navigate this presidential election. We knew, like all of you did, long before it's happened or started, that this was going to be an election like no other. And of course, it has proven to be more than true because we are in the middle of a pandemic. And so this curriculum actually helps teachers guide through, in a nonpartisan way, all of the disruptions that the media has caused and how the presidential candidates have responded. And so we know that tonight we're going to be looking at an amazing debate between, amazing, again, like no other, between President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joseph Biden. We also will be having tonight, right after the debate, which is likely about 9:30, although we will hold for real time, we will actually be discussing what happened and helping teachers talk about how they will talk about this with their students the next day with a wonderful panel. So please join us again for a live stream at 9:30 tonight. But right now, what we're going to talk about is what we think might happen, because we have a wonderful expert here, Aaron Kall, who is the director of debates. He's also the dean of students at the University of Michigan. Is that correct, Aaron?
The director of debate at the University of Michigan, and I work in the dean of students office there.
You work in the dean of students office. It's great to have you here. You are also an accomplished author. You've done a number of books. One of the one that is intriguing and really timely right now is Debating the Donald, which you published in 2016. Is that correct?
Yes, myself and 11 other communication experts from throughout the country initially published the book in 2016, which looked at all of Donald Trump's 11 preliminary debates in the Republican primary. And then we updated it just recently in the last few weeks to recap the 3 general election debates between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and then preview the debates coming up with Joe Biden.
I want you to know that we've now included that in our curriculum as well. We're have a couple more modules that'll be coming out in another week, and this is certainly going to be part of it when we're talking about the debates, because it's just it really covers so much, and is very definitive. And we love that it really looks at things in a wonderful analytical way. And so, tell me a little bit about what you think we're going to expect and hear tonight.
I expect fireworks similar to what we saw in 2016. Debates this year are taking on a little bit more of importance because coronavirus has denied us of so many of the traditional things of a presidential election campaign. So we had largely digital conventions, and a lot of the retail campaigning and large rallies that we saw in 2016 are no longer possible. But yet these 3 presidential debates and 1 vice presidential debate are still happening in pretty normal circumstances. And so there's a great amount of interest. And the first debate in 2016 was viewed by 84 million people. And I would expect to approach similar numbers from that tonight, possibly even eclipsing it. But the race is fairly close. And I think President Trump, all 3 debates are really part of his re-election strategy. He wants to do his best to make his case for this first agenda and how he wants to lead the country for the next 4 years, while trying to attack former Vice President Joe Biden and really put him on the defensive, given where the state of the race is heading into the first debate.
So it's a great wrap up. The only thing I'm going to push back on is it really isn't normal. Simply because we only have 40 days to the election. This is the first debate, and we already have more than 860,000 people who voted. So this is actually a debate amidst the voting, which is for a first debate something that doesn't normally happen at all. So we have fewer people to sway. I think the same number in 2016. We had less than 10,000 who would cast their ballot, either absentee or early voting. So it's
Oh,
a
that's
very
definitely a change this year, and certainly going to be more early voting because of coronavirus. And President Trump pushed for an earlier debate, a fourth debate, for lobbied the Commission on Presidential Debates because of that very reason, because of the prominence of early voting, and they wanted to have the debates before a lot of people started voting. And they denied that request because the logistical things to put on a debate at such late notice would be impossible. And the commission also made the argument that even if people requested their ballots, there's nothing that says they can't keep them until they watch the debates and make a final decision. But no, there's no question there's going to be more earlier voting. I think that puts more emphasis on the first debate, because by the time we get to the second and third debate, many people would have already voted. But because the margins were so close in the last election and this, even you're talking few thousand votes that a debate like this could sway is some of the reason it's so important. A state like Michigan, where I live, was decided by 10 or 11,000 votes. And so although many people have voted, it can still affect just a small amount that could make the difference in some of the key battleground states.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that there's it's although it is interesting. I read a couple of things this weekend where a couple of pundits were actually poo-pooing the whole idea that this was a pivotal moment. I kind of disagree. I really think that depending on what happens tonight, I think there's a number of people who are totally secure in what they're going to do and who they're going to vote for. But I do think there's more swing than people say. And a couple of pundits have said, it's not going to matter because everybody knows what they're going to do. And I do think that whatever the number of it's been estimated to be about 3%, the number of undecided voters, that I think you're spot on that's going to make a huge difference in different states. But I wanted to get to the book. Tell me a little bit about how you put it together, what the analysis entails. I mean, seems like a very elaborate look at how this politician has developed.
Yeah, when we had the idea for the book, we just kind of looked in general, and there weren't a tremendous amount of literature on presidential debates, specifically reviewing some of them, and especially in the last few decades. And so there seemed to be just a little bit of a dearth of literature in the area, and specifically wanted to focus on Donald Trump at that time. He was a novice politician, and he was was an entertainer, was a business person, and then got on the scene. And really, debates were the thing that captivated his candidacy. I think it's one of the reasons that he was the GOP nominee, was because starting in August of 2015 in Cleveland, he used the debate stage to vanquish his other more experienced competitors and increase his name recognition and status in the polls. And the ratings for some of those debates were tens of millions of people, which we usually don't see in primary debates. And so he was a unique debater, someone that really garnered a lot of attention. And when coming up with the book, we thought the best way to do it was to analyze every debate in which he participated in that primary cycle. There were 11 debates where he debated, and then one of the chapters is on the Iowa debate, which he decided to get in and boycott for various reasons. But we kind of analyzed the choices and rationale behind that as well. And so we looked at every city, every debate. And in the initial version of the book, we put a kind of advice about, given that Hillary Clinton was going to have 3 debates with Donald Trump, how to best handle a unique debater like Donald Trump, and kind of gave some predictions and advice in all those chapters. And the book was received well. The debates in 2016 broke all kinds of records. I mean, 2 of the 3 most viewed debates of all time happened in that cycle, and a big part of that was because of the participation of Donald Trump in it. and we may see only something like that greater this time. But the second part of the book, kind of the second edition, was just recently in the last few months. It kind of looked back at the three debates between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, talked about what the major argument issues were, and then talked about how some of those could come up in the three debates with Joe Biden. And then finally, we just preview the debates, the three debates coming up between Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
So I would ask you this: if on both sides, what is it? What kind of advice would you be giving if you were counseling President Trump about what he needs to do tonight?
Yeah, it's tough. In some ways, obviously, the thing he really needs to do is appeal to independent, moderate voters, those that haven't made up their mind, those that are persuadable. But that's something that he's had difficulty with in his presidency. He's more kind of played to a base strategy to increase the support of those that he already has. But really, to get approaching kind of a 50% in key battleground states and nationally, he needs to widen his audience. And one, he had used the topics that are coming up in tonight's debates to do that. And one of them is going to be an economy. That's probably his strongest area. All the polling shows that that's the area where he gets the highest marks. Really remind the people what it was like, the economy, job creation, economic growth before coronavirus, and why him and Mike Pence are the team to try to recreate that economic magic that really defined the first few years of his term. Also, the issue of the Supreme Court is somewhere where he can make headway. The fact that we just have a formal nominee that came on Saturday night, he can use that specific example and tout her record to appeal to an audience. It's something that the court and judges is an issue that's been historically something that has helped his candidacy and turnout enthusiasm from his base. So he's got a tough job, and to depart from previous speeches like the inauguration address and the State of the Union address, but really provide a forward-looking, optimistic vision for the country, because those messages usually do well in presidential debates.
Okay, so now you know what's coming. So I'm going to ask you, what is the advice that you would give Vice President Biden for tonight?
Yeah, most importantly, he just has to do no harm. I mean, the race has been pretty static for the last year, and he's in a good position both nationally and a lot of the battleground polls. And so he wouldn't mind if just how we view the race is the same after the three debates. And when you're kind of ahead coming into the debate, preventing making a major gaffe. We've seen some in presidential debates. The primary debates, Rick Perry is most famous about forgetting a department that he wanted to eliminate. And so some kind of major error that would question his ability and fitness to be president for the next 4 years is just something that totally want to do no harm. He would be the oldest president to enter office, and so there certainly are questions. President Trump has, through videos and things like that, put a lot of doubt, and so he needs to reassure the public that he's up to the task and will be a solid commander in chief for the next 4 years. And really, he needs to emulate his most recent debate. He had a one-on-one debate with Bernie Sanders in March. There was no audience, which was unique. It was in a television studio, and a lot of those characteristics will be present tonight on stage. And really just kind of focus, not ramble on to different things, and stay disciplined and just be reassuring. And people remind him of the role he had as vice president, but then also talk about some of his progressive and changes that he's made just from when he was in office recently.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think you're very right about the numbers here. I think they're going to be. I think they're going to break the 84 million. Not only because I think we're all curious, but I also think because we don't have a lot to do when the television is in front of us, right? And I also think the one thing that's fascinating about this, because we are the Museum of Broadcast Communication and we deal with, of course, radio and television as well as digital, I really think people forget that this presidency was actually born from television. This is a man who really has known television and known how to operate with it for quite a while. His global recognition came from The Apprentice. It came from a television show. We had the great communicator, Ronald Reagan, who actually was a movie star and actually, got his recognition as well from that. But this is a guy who has used TV throughout his career to actually enhance his career, and so he knows how to do it. Even though I know that the analysis that he's not a formal debater, he doesn't really have the skills that somebody who's studying debate has. He really knows how to move towards those cameras and make that moment last. He's just very, very good at interacting with people despite the distance because he knows how to play the camera. Do you think that would be accurate or?
Oh, definitely, and not just with the debates, but so much of his speeches are produced well. State of the Union addresses, inaugural address, even some of these, while he weren't able to have in-person convention in either Charlotte or Jacksonville, some of the stagecraft from the acceptance speech and having it in the Rose Garden and taking advantage of the pageantry of the White House. And oh yes, you can tell his eye, and he I think micromanages the production of all of this, and it's certainly served him well. And his exposure to tens of millions of people from The Apprentice was the thing that I think initially got people to give him a second look because they were familiar with him, and that show did a great job of portraying him as a really solid business person that is cutting deals and all of the kind of thing, and it's only continued in the White House. I think one interesting thing is going to be the lack of a crowd in tonight's debate. He's,
Mhm.
in addition to really choreographing and being a great producer of television and things like this, loves interacting with audiences, gets adulation, reads audiences to see how things are going, how lines that he has thrown out in a debate, how it's cutting with those watching. And normally in primary audiences, there were several thousand. In his rallies, obviously thousands or even tens of thousands in 2016. This is going to be very unique. This debate, the commission has said, is only going to have 75 to 80 people.
Yeah.
So not much audible reaction from the audience. And for someone that's never had, it's going to be a sharp learning curve and cause him maybe to second guess himself about whether a line of attack or that he's on is successfully working. And he's really going to have to trust his own gut instinct as opposed to looking outward to the crowd in the debate tonight.
So, how much do you think the New York Times package that came out this weekend on the investigation on more than 20 years of his taxes will impact tonight?
I don't believe it's going to be a big issue in the debate. I think part of the reason is moderator Chris Wallace has already come out with his 6 topics that are 15 minutes each and going to dominate the debate. And it's a little late to switch topics. Obviously, you can weave this into one of them, although it doesn't fit totally naturally. But in some ways, what happened with this expose just about 48 hours before the debate, it is in some ways reminiscent of the Access Hollywood tape. That dropped just about 48 hours before the St. Louis debate, and that caused the Trump campaign to really hustle, and they had to come out with a video announcement. There was an impromptu press conference right before the debate, and that I believe really ironically threw Hillary Clinton off, and she did not have as good a debate as she did in New York, just given everything that was happening in such a short amount of time. And so something like this that gets interjected at the last minute, I don't think it's going to change the pre-planned focus that Chris Wallace has. I'm sure it's going to come up, but we've seen a lot of this ground covered in the 2016 debates as well. He'll say that doing something
I
like
don't know.
this.
I don't know about. I don't think you can say that we've seen this ground covered because this is just much more definitive. It's a lot of new ground being broken. It's a topic that's the same because it's about his taxes and it's about whether or not you know, as you well said, and this is the problem that we're trying to help teachers deal with. As you well said, The Apprentice was a place where he brought the being a great businessman and everything else. Well, The Apprentice was also, filmed at a time when he was going bankrupt. So there's also the idea of you can be anything you want on television. There's a facade on television, right? I can tell you who I am, and the whole idea of fact checking. How is it that we help students? How is it that we help teachers reconcile the difference between the facade that politicians are giving, and this is true of all politicians, but it is also even more so true of the president, that he doesn't necessarily let facts get in the way of what he's saying. How do we differentiate between the facade and the reality when we're looking at these debates tonight?
Yeah, no, that's tough because looking back at how he's kind of handled things like this previously, the first thing he'll do is likely attack the New York Times and the reporting to protect their sources. The New York Times hasn't made the documents public and aren't sharing those, and so I think he's going to question the validity. Some of the lines of arguments that he's made previously is that that this was something that smart business people do to try to avoid taxes, and he's just working kind of within a system that's bad. And I think that this will give him the opportunity to, even though he's the incumbent president, try to play the outsider again.
But
That's
again,
kind of how water.
my question to you is not how he would react, but how do we analyze this? How do we, as the audience, look at this and go, okay, this is what he's saying, but the facts are not adding up to that, and it's the same with Biden. I mean, when we have looked through all of the debates in modern history, what we see is there are fact checkers along the side, and very often, we get it the next day when we're looking at it that night. Are we to be on our guard? Are we to trust anything, or what is the recommendation that you might give to the teachers and the educators that we're speaking to when it comes to great debates?
Yeah, I think when watching the debates that you should trust the moderators in their presentation of the issues and facts as they present. The Commission on Presidential Debate select the moderators. Chris Wallace is the only one that participated in the 2016 cycle in this one, and so that shows the great faith that they have in him and for the way in which he handled the Las Vegas debate in 2016. And so if he asks a question about the taxes, it presents some of the work in the New York Times. I think that those should treat those as credible, but ultimately it's up to the viewers to make their own conclusions. They should read the article. It was 6 pages in the New York Times, and then listen to President Trump's explanation and make their own judgments for what kind of they believe. But unfortunately, in these debates, kind of real time fact checking is not going to occur. There was an interview with the co-chair of the Commission on Presidential Debates just yesterday, and he was very explicit that he didn't believe that the role of the moderators in these debates are to
Well, and
provide fact checking.
Chris Wallace has said that's not my job. That's not my job to fact check the candidates at all. He said that in the 2016 debate, and it's one of the reasons why they're bringing him back, because he's hard hitting in terms of keeping people on track. But he also said, I'm not going to interrupt you with that's wrong, and this is a fact check. So that makes a lot of. So where does that puts us? That puts us at a point where we're watching something that we don't know. We don't know. We're on a little bit of shifting ground as the audience.
Yes. I mean, it does. It requires additional work from the audience. They'll hear a claim, and then they'll have the candidates kind of rebut it, and some of them will come with their own facts and things ready. And so it's about um, sifting through who they believe to have the most persuasive argument, those that are providing the most neutral and arbiter facts, and make their decision. And it's not just the kind of the sporting evidence that's used by two candidates, but also the credibility deemed by both. Whether the track record in office over a long period of time, or just the presidency in the last 4 years. So it's a combination of what the evidence decided, and also kind of what they personally believe the candidates from their past actions or their current words. And so it's going to be different for a different audience. Those that have already made up their minds are likely not going to shift, and they're going to believe their own candidates. A lot of people tune into debates just to root on their own candidates. But those that are truly on the fence, maybe we have some voters that voted for President Obama, Trump, or Democrats in 2018. They're the ones that have to make the toughest decision. And oftentimes they are kind of low information voters that don't pay attention all the time. And then they do pay attention to a major event like this, and kind of what they hear in just a very small amount of time could be it, or else they'll take some additional time and do their own fact checking at the conclusion of the debate.
Yeah. So, and what about what I find fascinating as we watch the history of the debates, that, in the very first debate, there was no discussion, there was no punditry afterwards. It was just the debate was over. And those millions of people got to decide what they decided. And now we've moved to the point where, the discussion is not just before and after, it's of course so many days ahead, and of course so many days after, but it's also during. So we if you're on Twitter, if you're on social media, there's live. Are there any sources that you think of that people could look to where they could have confidence in as they're watching the debate? People that they could follow, other that they don't feel are totally biased one way or the other, or what do you think?
Um, it's tough these days. Everyone certainly has an agenda, but I wouldn't recommend, I don't think, specific people. But what I would say is, if you follow people on social media, Twitter, just have a wide variety of sources. Just don't, no matter who it is and what their particular expertise is, don't just, follow a bunch of Democrats or a bunch of Republicans, and have a wide variety, because it's great to get opposing opinions and kind of see how different people viewed it. But I agree. There's the big expectations up into the expectations up into the debate about who people think are going to win. Ultimately, that sometimes that influences the performance of the debate even more than what happens in the debate. And then the commentary after, some people are really influenced by it, and not just what they watched, but then how they perceived at the end. Kind of to see how that happens. And also, sometimes look about, are people felt one thing from Joe Biden's speech at the Democrat National Convention is that when there was a panel on Fox News that were all kind of universal into saying, "Oh, this is a pretty good speech. This is better than we expected." When you have those that are ideologically probably opposed to Joe Biden, and all kind of in being in unanimity of saying the speech, then I think it's probably okay to think, well, that was probably a pretty good speech, and certainly something that was better. So anytime people go against maybe some of their own, ideological predilections, and kind of have opinions, then that's something maybe you could even put a little more credibility in.
Well, I think one of the things that is not going to be happening because of COVID-19 is there's going to be no spin room. There's going to be no place where everybody goes, so that of course that limits the contact with people. So it'll be interesting to see how this rolls out. I'm sure it will be. I know it will be rolling out on television on the different stations. It's going to be covered by everybody. We will be here looking at this, hoping that our panel will be helping teachers and educators figure out how to talk to students about this, to really emphasize news and media literacy, to also emphasize critical thinking and civic engagement. One of the most important things about an election like this is to hope that people get involved and really care about the democracy. Erin, we're so lucky to have had you today. Thank you so much for the time, and thank you for the book. It's a great resource for people to use. And we will be looking. Are you a tweeter? Are you going to be out there talking about the election, Erin?
Yes, yes. We just at Michigan Debate is the Twitter handle of the debate team, and I in Cleveland for the debate tonight, and we'll be trying to provide as much neutral analysis to those in the media that seek it.
Well, thank you so much for the time today. And thank all of you for joining us today. And hopefully you'll join us tonight after the debates at 9:30. We'll see you then. Again, happy half hour to y'all.